Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and thank you for joining us for another episode of Fronteras Changing America. I'm Anthony Moreno. A local organization is providing a new way in Doña County for folks to get fresh food that is locally grown in places that may not have access to healthy local food. Let's take a look.
1, 2, 3.
At a recent ribbon-cutting ceremony at Klein Park in Las Cruces, La Semilla Food Center celebrated the launch of their Farm Fresh mobile market. The mission is to get fresh local fruits, vegetables, meats, and more to communities that may not have any nearby healthy food options. Elena Acosta with La Semilla says it's an opportunity for the center to work with area farmers and communities to get healthy food to more areas in Doña County.
We're going to be reaching 7 communities throughout Doña Ana, and basically through that we're partnering with local farmers and bringing healthy fresh foods to them so that they can purchase them. And if families are on SNAP or in need, they can also maybe gain a dollar per dollar match through the Double Up Food Bucks program.
At the bus, we met Marilyn Heidi, who purchased items from the mobile market.
I bought cucumber and some basil and an eggplant.
Heidi says the mobile market is a great idea for people around Las Cruces who cannot make it to the farmers market on designated days.
I know a lot of times I can't make it to the market. I live on the north side of town, and it'd be nice if there was a truck like this that could come up there once in a while. I love to buy local. I love organic.
According to 2012 data from the Centers for Disease Control, approximately 17% of children and adolescents aged 2 through 19 are obese across the country. U.S. Senator Martin Heinrich addressed the crowd at the launch of the mobile market. He says that at the federal level, over the past few years, there has been a more focus on local horticulture.
In other words, growing the things that we actually eat. The sort of what you think of as traditional agriculture in New Mexico, of chilies and squash and other fresh fruits and vegetables that families actually consume, and away from commodity production, so that we're putting more focus on the things that are healthy for our kids to eat.
Las Cruces Green Chamber of Commerce CEO and President Carrie Hamblin says that the mobile market has 2 components to it.
There's the economic component, that the fact that La Semilla now has a social enterprise aspect of what they do as a nonprofit. So this is something that will make money, but it's also serving the purpose of bringing healthy food to communities that don't have access to it.
The kickoff was held at Klein Park in Las Cruces, located in the historic Mesquite District, where City Councilor Cassandra Gondara serves. She says the residents here can face challenges when it comes to getting healthy food, and she's happy that every week the mobile market will be outside a coffee shop in the district.
This is really a dream come true, I think, for folks that have lived here a significant amount of time, who feel like the access to fresh fruit and vegetables and meats is something that's been, very difficult to attain. And so to be able to have this, parked outside of Beck's, once a week is really exciting, I think, for our neighbors here.
Elena Acosta with La Semilla Food Center says for details on where the mobile market will be each week in Doña County, visit their website and social media. For KRWG, I'm Anthony Moreno. Please welcome Krysten Aguilar with La Semilla Food Center. She's here to tell us more about the mobile market. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now I'd like to start off with, what was the main idea for having the mobile market here in Doña County?
Well, at La Semilla Food Center, we're really focused on building a healthy and local sustainable food system in the region. And we look at everything from the production end, from basically farm to seed to table, and also to waste. And what we've realized over the past 6 years as we've been doing this work here in the area is that most of Doña County is considered a food desert. Places where there's high levels of poverty and low access to food. So we have a lot of people throughout the county, and especially in the colonias, but also directly in Las Cruces itself, that don't have access to a vehicle and don't have a nearby grocery store. We have some folks that we know from community meetings and just a lot of the work on the ground that we do that have to schedule rides into town, going 30, 40 miles one way to get to a full service grocery store to get fruits and vegetables and other healthy food. So we know that we have a problem, and so we really work to how do we address that? What is it that we can do to make it better? And we focus on two main pieces, education about the food system and what all of this means, and then access to food. And so the access is the growing of it, of course, growing diversified fruits and vegetables here in the Valley, and then also education and really teaching people how to cook that food. So we figured that a mobile farmers market, which has been done in other places across the country, there's one in Albuquerque as well, on some of the, I think the Navajo reservation as well has one. And as we were thinking about the dual issues of lack of grocery stores, lack of fruits and vegetables, and also lack of transportation, it just made sense to have basically a farmer's market on wheels, taking the food directly to the people in the communities that need it the most.
Now, maybe to help our viewers get a better understanding of how this is needed in the area. I mean, when you don't have access to a local grocery store or a supermarket nearby that you can, visit either in a short trip, how does that really impact your community and the people living there?
Right. Well, we know in science and the research tells us that if people don't have good access to healthy food, they are much less likely to get the recommended serving of fruits and vegetables, which then is directly linked to higher rates of diet-related diseases. So this has a pretty profound impact on communities. We're looking at things like a lower quality of life, more health issues, and really just people have a lot of strain on their time as it is. We have some families, if they're working 2 or 3 jobs, and then trying to find the time to figure out how to get to a grocery store and get fruits and vegetables rather than what just happens to be easiest and most convenient, really has an impact on our communities and our health, both individually and then like public health collectively. So it's a really big issue, and nationwide it's a big issue with diabetes, obesity, other diet-related diseases, and it's especially true here. It's interesting because it's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, we have really high incidences of diet-related diseases. On the other hand, we have really high incidences of food insecurity. Almost 40% of children in Doña County don't have access to good food, or face food insecurity sometime in the year. That's really high. It's higher than the New Mexico average. It's higher than the national average. So we have these really serious issues that we have to start addressing, and something like a mobile farmers market is one tiny piece of that puzzle to start addressing those dual issues.
If people don't have a nearby supermarket and they may be only looking for, their meal at a local convenience store, which may not have too many healthy options there. I mean, is that something that you've noticed within the communities that you're serving?
Yeah, absolutely. People get what's available, and sometimes what's available is highly processed, not good for you, full of sugar additives. So that adds to that issue of diet-related diseases, and then you're still hungry. So cheap calories because it's easy to get.
Now you mentioned diet-related diseases as a possibility of what could happen when people don't have access to healthy food, and also the food insecurity issue. So it seems like we're getting hit twice, like here in Doña County. I mean, the mobile market seems like a great idea to help, but it seems like, are you just putting,
Right.
like a bandage on a dam that's springing holes?
Right, and what we really focus on at La Semilla in general is really looking systemically. So we have a lot of different programs that start addressing all of the various aspects of this huge issue, because we're talking about a food system that's broken. It works very well for a few players in the system, but for everybody else, it doesn't work very well.
Let's talk about those players. Who does it work really well for?
It works well for people who kind of are at the top of the chain, who have, the players who are doing the distributing and large supermarkets. And not taking the chance and putting things in communities that need them. It's risky to open grocery stores in certain areas, which is why historically you have places that are just completely underserved, and because it can be risky for businesses. But what we're seeing is that this food system, especially here in Doña Ana County, we're an agricultural valley. The majority of production here gets shipped out. Most of it is shipped out of the county. So while we have a ton of agriculture being produced, we still have a lot of hunger issues and a lot of these food issues. And the reason that is because the system is set up so that farmers have to play in this game to be able to make it. It's difficult farming. We have a 14-acre farm in Anthony, and which is pretty small whenever you think about it in the larger scheme of things. And it's incredibly difficult, it's costly, and we're not paying the true cost of food. You can go to the grocery store and get a pound of tomatoes for $1, $1.50. That's not how much those tomatoes actually cost to produce. So we're missing a few pieces in this link of when it is grown in the field to when it gets to our plates. And so we are faced with this really strange issue of, on the one hand, we're not paying the true cost of food. What are the environmental costs? What are the costs of farm workers, their health issues, all of their rights? What are the costs to transporting that food over long distances and all of these middlemen who are there? And then, so we're not paying the true cost, but we also have families that can't afford food now as it is. So it's really a complicated and tricky situation to have to deal with. And so whenever we think about the system holistically, we have to look at the production end, helping people grow more food that stays here in the area, and then helping people access that food. So it's kind of tricky, and there's not one good answer for it. There's a lot of it is, we think maybe this will work, let's see how this goes. For example, on the mobile farmers market. The New Mexico Farmers Market Association is running a Double Up Food Bucks program, which we participate in. So for every $1 that a family or an individual spends of SNAP benefits, they get a free dollar match for fresh produce grown here in New Mexico. So this is a program that's helping families increase their purchasing power, making them more able to buy more fruits and vegetables, and then also helping the farmers and the producers who have that product because they're able to sell more and get more out. So there are these like little things that are helping to move that along.
Well, it sounds like the mobile market is kind of connecting to all these different areas that is your mission at La Semilla.
Right, and it's tied with both the access but the education piece too, just to make people more aware of how complicated it is and how serious the repercussions can be if we don't pay attention to what we're eating and how we're producing our food, both for our individual health, our environmental health, all of those things.
Well, I mean, at the market, when you're set up, I've noticed that there are some educational pieces that you have out for customers.
Right, yeah, so we do a lot of education pieces in conjunction with the market. We've partnered with New Mexico Doña Ana County Extension Services to do cooking demonstrations and produce tastings right there where we set up the bus occasionally. So if we have a bunch of patty pan squash or like 3 different kinds of eggplant, people don't know what that is, and even me, I'm like, what do I do with all of this eggplant? Like, there's only so much you think you can do with it. So we have recipes and different things to help people understand, you can stock up on this and then freeze it and you'll have it all winter.
Wow. Now, how can the mobile market model be used as possibly helping area farmers?
So for one thing, it's an extra market outlet for small farmers. And that they don't have to go and set up and take time out of their day doing, because that can be quite difficult to do at a regular farmer's market multiple times throughout the week. And I think it's a really good example of how we can use innovative ideas and start thinking out of the box. Whenever we say get access to good food in underserved communities, what does that mean? It's just an example of one way we can do that. We're working currently on the policy side on a healthy food financing initiative here in the county. And an HFFI, for short, lots of acronyms, is a fund basically that's a revolving loan fund that gives small interest loans and forgivable loans to small businesses or individuals that are working to get healthy food access into underserved areas. So this has been done a few places across the US. Pennsylvania has a statewide fund that does this. And not only is it a loan, it's coupled with development services. So if you're an individual who traditionally doesn't have access to such capital, especially at a low interest rate, which can be a pretty big barrier coming into business for people, you could get access to these funds. For example, say there's a family that has a pretty large lot next to their house and they want to start growing tomatoes and chilies and then set up a farm stand and sell that and make an extra $300, $400, $500 a month, for example. They could get a small loan, low interest, part of it forgivable. In addition, they get development services. So they're getting help with things like marketing and promotion, financial literacy, all of those types of things. And then all of a sudden you have one family who is both growing food and then has an outlet to sell it. And an extra $400 or $500 for a lot of families, that's a really big deal. And so it's looking at it in a pretty interesting way because it's food access and health on the one hand, and then on the other hand, it's economic development, but in a really interesting way. We're not talking about economic development as it's traditionally thought about, which is giving, incentives for businesses to come in and giving them, tax breaks or whatever it might be. It's looking at economic development at the grassroots level, really. It's economic gardening. So we're getting wealth into our communities right at the grassroots level where it's going to be circulating. So we're looking at issues of food access, and then you're really looking at that issue that really underlies a lot of the problems that we have, which is poverty, right? We have really high poverty in the area. So as we're running this healthy food financing campaign, really working to get a fund like that established here in Doña Ana County, we can look at the mobile market as an example of how those funds could be used. So if somebody else wanted to open some kind of a mobile market, that would be amazing, and then those funds would be available for them. If somebody wanted to open a small grocery store or retrofit a corner store, there's a lot of ways that we can think about getting good food into underserved areas.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people may think of underserved areas as rural areas, but where we're at in Las Cruces, there's plenty of those underserved areas. Right. Where at the ribbon cutting ceremony in the historic district here in Las Cruces, there was formerly a local market that people would go to. But that's been closed. So, right. How do you connect and really reach out to people to let them know that, hey, this is a possibility. You could, start something by yourself, and it can be sustainable and healthy not only for you, but your community.
Right, that's what we want to do, because it takes a lot of outreach and education. Once a fund like this gets established, then it requires a lot of door knocking and talking to people and outreach, really getting people to understand that, one, it's a possibility, and two, you can do that. It's just a lot of that education piece that we do too.
So how do you start that? You may have a lot of folks who have a certain mindset when it comes to business and not used to being the boss or the owner or the entrepreneur. Do you teach this at the student level with local kids possibly?
That's one possibility for sure. And another is really just La Semilla, we operate on this principle that our communities have the inherent wisdom and capabilities that are needed to create the food system that we want to see. It's all there, there's just a lack of opportunity. And having talked to people and at community meetings, people know their issues, they know there are problems, and they want opportunities to do something about it. And so it's kind of a cultural shift too. It's thinking about, okay, yeah, you can be in charge, you can get a loan, you can start a business, and this is how you do it. And I think those development services coupled with something like a low interest loan for a healthy food financing fund will make a huge difference, just because there's a pretty steep learning curve to a lot of things. Business can be risky, scary to think about doing, So having those services available for people free of charge, I think, is one really big step and really important in moving something like that forward.
Let's talk about the mobile market a little bit. So, what is what can people find at the mobile market when it stops in their community?
It depends on what's in season and when it is. So we're really lucky here in this area that we can grow year round. And so right now we have a lot of our end of summer crops. So there's tomatoes and squash and eggplant, those types of things. And it's really a multi-farm mobiles market. So we have our farm, which grows diversified vegetable production. And then we also consign with various other farms who are growing other types of vegetables. We also have some staple products because we want to get healthy food to people, but people also have, people want tortillas and salsa too. So we have things like staples so that people are able to get those. And then we also partner with Terra del Sol Farms down south of El Paso. So we have meats. They have a USDA certified processing facility. So we're able to have different kinds of meats there that are frozen that they can buy. Eggs, often we have a bunch of eggs as well. So you have a lot of fruits and vegetables. You have some meat, a few staple products, eggs, that type of thing.
Now, I know a lot of folks may go to the farmers market in downtown Las Cruces on a Saturday morning to get a lot of those, but this seems like something that could be really helpful to people who can't make it to the farmers market on a Saturday morning.
Right, exactly. And our schedule, which is always posted on our Facebook page, weekly at least, because it varies a little bit, that's why we varied the time of where we're stopping places. So for example, in Las Cruces, we're stopping in the Mesquite neighborhood, right next to Beck's Coffee, on Thursday mornings from 9 to noon. And might possibly extend that a little bit because we've had people say, well, I need to come on my lunch break. So we stop at times where it's not a traditional farmers market operating hours. In Las Cruces, we're in the Mesquite neighborhood. We have a stop in Vado. We stop at the Anthony and Chaparral Public Health offices on alternating weeks. And then at our farm in Anthony itself, we're there on Fridays. And the schedule changes a little bit, and so people can always find that on our Facebook page, though.
So tell me a little bit about what the response has been in the colonias.
It's been overwhelmingly positive. In fact, we have quite a few sales. I don't know the latest numbers, but it's been really overwhelmingly positive, and we've had so much support and people really excited about it, which has been really great and gratifying, I think.
Now, with the market, I mean, it must take a lot of upkeep in general. I know you retrofitted a bus, so
Yeah.
How much is time and dedication and funds are really dedicated to keeping that bus up and running?
Quite a few. We were able to start this bus through a USDA Community Food Projects grant that we received. So this is a 3-year grant, and there are 2 components to it. One is the mobile market itself. So we have a full-time staff person who manages it, runs the bus. We have apprentices that help out on it and are learning all about marketing and that type of thing, growing, marketing, the whole shebang basically. And then on the other hand, we also have the education piece through that grant as well. So we have a La Cosecha project. And this is using a promotora model to get community health workers, leaders in their community. They get trained on leading cooking and gardening workshops, and they take it right back into their communities. And they're building community gardens in their communities. They're doing 6-week cooking classes, free to anybody who wants to attend as well. So we're focusing on the access piece with the market, and then the education piece with our La Cosecha project too.
That sounds pretty exciting. I mean, also I know that you work in community schools as well. Mm-hmm. Could you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have our edible education program is our school-based education program, largely funded by the Paso del Norte Health Foundation in El Paso. And we started out a few years ago with Food Corps members directly in the schools. We were at 7 schools, I think, a few years ago between Las Cruces and Gadsden school districts. And our Food Corps members would be in the classroom with the teachers, helping lead cooking classes in the gardens that we built in these schools. And as we got more and more demand for these services, we shifted our model so that now we're doing almost like a promotora model. It's train the trainer. So we have schools that are interested fill out an application. It's a competitive process, and they have to have a certain number of teachers and administration on board and committed to this project. And so then we do teacher development, basically. So it's teacher workshops. We're giving teachers all the tools they need to go back into their classrooms and do it themselves. We have curriculum that is aligned with standards that they need. We're able to help put in infrastructure, garden beds, compost bins, all of that, as well as monthly farm boxes. So each month teachers will get, in the participating schools, get a box of fresh farm produce from our farm to use in their cooking lessons in the classroom, which is really great. And right now we're at 24 schools between Las Cruces, Gadsden, and El Paso school districts. So it just keeps expanding. There's a lot of interest, I think, and it's really gratifying and amazing to see the kids involved in this.
Well, that sounds pretty exciting. We just have less than a minute left. You mentioned social media. I'd like to give you an opportunity to let folks know how they can stay updated on the mobile market on social media. You also have a pretty neat hashtag, I heard.
We do. It's #FollowTheBus, and you'll be able to find us. We have a Facebook page, La Semilla Food Center. The bus itself is on Instagram at Farm Fresh Bus. We also have a website that people can check out at www.lasemillafoodcenter.org.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And you could always check us out online at krwg.org. We're on social media. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at krwg. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Fronteras at Changing America. I'm Anthony Moreno.